why Europeans came to the New World. What did explorers take to and from the New World during the age of exploration? Introduction. A team of scientists search a sunken ship on the ocean floor. The ship has been there for centuries. How did the ship get there? What objects will the scientists find? This ship may be one of the many that set sail across the Atlantic in the late 1400s and the 1500s. Europeans wanted spices and silks from Asia, but only a few countries controlled this trade. To share in this business, other countries began sailing unknown seas, looking for their own routes to Asia. What they found instead were the American continents. You have learned about the first people to settle in North America. In this lesson, you will learn how and why Europeans set out for these lands, which they called the New World. Of course, this was not a new world to the American Indians who had lived there for thousands of years. Christopher Columbus was one of the explorers who sailed to North America looking for a route to Asia. He set out on his expedition in 1492. Before Columbus, few people had traveled far from Europe. Other explorers followed Columbus and sailed to the New World. They used navigation tools to help them cross the ocean and brought back things of value. Sometimes ships were lost at sea. Scientists studying sunken ships look for artifacts that tell us about the explorers' expeditions. As you read this lesson, picture yourself examining the objects on a sunken ship. What clues would these objects give you about how and why Europeans came to the New World? Underwater archaeology. Underwater archaeologists study sunken ships. Some study the ships used by the explorers who came to the Americas. How do these scientists find a sunken ship? They look at old ship records kept by European merchants and read tales told by shipwreck survivors. They use new machines and methods to locate a ship's anchors or cannons. For example, sonar uses sound waves to detect sunken objects deep in the ocean. Archaeologists want to know the position of each artifact found on a ship. Divers use cables to mark off the site in squares, and they use the grid to know the exact location of an artifact. This helps archaeologists learn who used the object and how. Divers photograph and tag each artifact before bringing it out of the water. Next, someone records and measures it. Finally, it goes to a laboratory where it is studied. Everyone carefully handles the artifact because it is hundreds of years old. Metal artifacts are usually the most intact, while objects made of plant or animal products are more fragile. After studying hundreds of artifacts, archaeologists may learn the name of the ship, where it was going, and why. They might also figure out who was on board. It can take years to find a sunken ship, and bringing up the remains of the ship can take weeks. Understanding what the objects mean is another long process. Read on to learn how artifacts give clues about how and why Europeans sailed to the New World. Ocean crossing. The European age of exploration began in the late 1400s when countries looked for new trade routes to Asia. In the late 1400s and in the 1500s, explorers crossing the Atlantic needed a way to stay on course. They had no landmarks to guide them in the open sea. They used astrolabes to find their position. An astrolabe is a circular piece of metal with marks around its edges. A bar attached to it can be rotated about the center as a pointer. A sailor would hold the astrolabe by loop at the top and then tilt the bar so that it lined up straight against the sun, the North Star, or another known star. He would measure the latitude of his ship by measuring the angle of the star above the horizon, where Earth and the sky meet. The angle would tell him how far north or south the ship was from the equator. Astrolabes enabled explorers to sail accurately by day or night. Directions. European explorers used another tool for figuring out direction, a compass. People still use this tool today. A compass has a magnetic needle balanced on a small metal post, which the needle can spin freely on. The needle's point is attracted to the powerful magnetic field that lines up close to the North Pole. So, the compass needle always points north. During the age of exploration, if a ship's navigator knew which direction was north, he could find the other directions. South is the opposite of north. When facing north, east is to the right, and west is to the left. A compass did not tell the navigator where he was, but it did show which direction the ship was heading, even when it sailed through fog or in total darkness. Without this tool, it may have taken Europeans much longer to reach the New World. Maps. Maps are drawings of bodies of land and water. They may also show where key physical features are. Maps use a scale, which shows how the distance on the map relates to the actual distance on Earth. There are multiple types of maps. Nautical charts, which map the ocean, show such features as rocky shores and safe ports. Navigational charts are maps that show where winds blow and ocean currents flow. European explorers carried these maps and maps of the places to which they journeyed. Map makers in Europe got new information from sailors, explorers, and scientists. They added these details to their maps. In the 1400s, map makers knew that the world was round, but before Columbus sailed, they did not know about the New World. No one realized how wide the Atlantic Ocean was. For centuries after Columbus's trip, maps of the Americas still had many blank spots because they were unexplored. They showed places that remained unknown. Often, maps also had drawings of imaginary sea monsters, such as undersea dragons or serpents. Claimed lands. During the age of exploration, European rulers wanted to spread their power to the New World. Sometimes they paid for the explorers' ships and crews. These explorers carried flags or banners to honor their kings and queens. Spanish ships often flew a flag that showed a cross. Their flags also had the letter F for King Ferdinand and a Y for Queen Isabel, or Isabella in English. Once explorers reached a new land, they planted a flag to claim or take that land for their country. Flags have always been symbols of the power of countries and their rulers, and more power was what King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella wanted for both themselves and their country. Gaining more land and the natural resources in the Americas would strengthen their kingdom of Spain. Religious beliefs. Christianity began in the Middle East. It spread through Europe almost 2,000 years ago during the time of the Roman Empire. Later, Europeans spread this religion to other parts of the world. Some Christians in Europe belonged to the Roman Catholic Church, but others belonged to Protestant churches. Many believed that all people should share their beliefs. Catholic rulers sent priests and armies to other lands. Part of their mission was to convert people to the Catholic Church. In the 1500s, explorers from Europe were Christians. Many carried a Bible with them. The Bible contains the stories and teachings of the Christian faith and has two parts. The Old Testament contains writings from the Jewish religion, while the New Testament contains writings by the followers of Jesus Christ. Wealth. Europeans measured wealth in gold and silver. They made their most valuable coins from these metals. In the late 1400s, Spain had just fought a costly war. So, its king and queen wanted to increase their country's supply of gold and silver. They hoped that the explorers they sent to the New World would bring back these precious metals. In parts of Mexico and South America, the Spanish found gold and silver. They forced natives to work in gold and silver mines as slaves. The Spanish turned the gold and silver ore from the mines into bars, coins, and other valuable objects. Ships carried these riches back to Spain. New foods. However, some of the most valuable things explorers found and brought back were new foods. These are natural products, not artifacts. Historical records tell us about them. For example, native peoples from all over the New World grew different types of corn. They roasted it, boiled it, popped it, and ground it into flour. The explorers liked this new food. It was as healthful and had as many uses as wheat, but its seeds were bigger and tastier. New foods from the Americas changed what people ate around the world. Some vegetables that came from the Americas include potatoes, sweet potatoes, beans, and squash. Fruits, such as tomatoes and pineapple, were first grown in the New World too. As these foods spread, people began to eat a more healthful diet. Populations grew in many places in Europe. Do you like chocolate? Cacao came from which chocolate is made. Was also first grown in the New World. Native peoples there used cocoa in drinks and in medicines. Cash crops. Early explorers saw a tall, leafy plant called tobacco, which grew throughout the Americas. American Indians dried its leaves. Some smoked the dried leaves in pipes or in cigars, and others chewed tobacco or inhaled it as a powder, which Europeans called snuff. In most tribes, few women used tobacco, but many men were addicted to it. They thought tobacco was good for their health. Tobacco was part of religious and peacemaking ceremonies for many tribes. Explorers took tobacco back to Europe. Some Europeans thought it was a medicine, and many became addicted to it. Tobacco grew quickly in popularity and was in great demand. It grew well in the New World, so American colonists would plant large fields of tobacco there and sell the crop to Europeans. Tobacco became a valuable cash crop. The money colonists earned from tobacco sales helped them to buy goods from Europe. Lesson summary. In this lesson, you read about artifacts that might have been found on ships that sank during the age of exploration. These objects gave us clues about how and why Europeans came to the New World. These artifacts include navigation tools that sailors at that time used. These tools helped guide explorers as they sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. The artifacts also helped show some of the reasons explorers set out for the New World. They wanted to spread Christianity to natives there, but they also hoped to gain new lands and wealth for themselves and their countries. You also read about the valuable cargo of New World plants that explorers brought back to Europe. People in Europe soon began to eat new foods such as corn and potatoes. As tobacco became popular, the colonists grew it as a cash crop that they sold to Europeans for large profits. The New World was rich with its resources, and the explorers were determined to bring many of them back home.